So I've been asked for a while now to do an updated State of the Collection video showing off the entire collection. And looking back at the most recent one I did about a year ago, I realized a lot has changed. If you're used to seeing a big wall of open shelves with a bunch of action figures on them, well, this is completely different than that. Probably the reason it took me so long to make this video is because I've really been messing with the shelves over and over, trying to get them exactly how I want them. I actually moved them very recently. They were kind of over here, coming across this corner originally, and I didn't really like that as much because it felt kind of inefficient. And overall, yeah, I realized I'm never going to get this to a state where I'm 100% happy with it, because the collection's always going to be evolving, so might as well just show off what I have right now, and we'll go from there. I'm going to go through these shelves in rows, because that's kind of how they're set up. So up here is my first two series, at least movie series versions of Godzilla. So back there we have the Monster Arts 54, we have the 64, and then the Emergence version back behind him. We have the NECA 84, and then I think that's the Toho Machine Chronicles by Bandai Super X figure, which just because Monster Arts never gave us the original Super X, and I wanted to have all three. Here's the Rebirth Godzilla, but I'm using him in place of my 94, my General Heisei era Godzilla. Then we got Little Godzilla chilling down there. In the second case, I have my two different 2000s, the original release with the purple spines, which is my preferred one, then the silver spine reissue back there. I have the Monster Arts GMK, and then granted it's a little out of order, and I guess I should fix that, but I figured I'd have more room by putting Shin Godzilla there, kind of more centered, just because his tail takes up so much freaking space. And then I have the two legendary Godzillas over here on the side. I have the Spitfire up front, and I have the original release there in the back, but I gave him the Muto head from the Spitfire version. Next shelf over, and it's much brighter, and I guess that wall scroll I have behind the Godzillas is really kind of dampening out the light, so I might need to remove that. But here we have my mech hanger, and this is a shelf I really like. It has Mecha King Ghidorah, of course, there in the back, the biggest of all. I got Mogira there. I have Super Mecha Godzilla 2 with the Garuda on his back. I have the Moonlight SY3 blasting off there from the Revoltech Anguirus. Then I have the two Kiryu figures there on the right. And down here I have all the tanks. I think these are all out of the effects kits. I think the two freeze tanks I have elsewhere, and we'll get to them in a minute. Next up we have my Kaiju Alien Invaders set. So I have Ghidorah and the flight stand up there. It's actually the original release Monster Arts Ghidorah on the reissue flight stand. And I know this version isn't an Alien Invader, but I prefer Ghidorah being alien. So yeah. Back there we have Space Godzilla. Then we have the original Mecha Godzilla. This is the Chigoken figure, though there are pictures circling around of a Monster Arts version coming soon, so I'll be interested to see how that comes out. I do have the Dorets back there on Ghidorah's stand, the Revoltech Gigan, and then the Monster Arts Final Wars Gigan, and then the original Mogira here from Revoltech with the, what was it, the Arc Light or something like that, and then the little Mysterian next to him. Up next I have my Flying Kaiju shelf, so way up there at the top on a Obitsu stand, which is perfect for these detolfs. You'll see them in other locations as well. I have Fire Rodan. Then we have Mothra. Mothra's using what Fire Rodan used to have, which is a standard Tamashii stage, but it has one of the extender pieces from Ghidorah's breath effect to kind of raise her up. And then lower down there we have the Batra flying form. Then we have one of the helicopters from the Godzilla Jr. set next to the Batra larva. And then we have the Mothra larva down there. And then these are all the different planes we've gotten, the different effects sets with Monster Arts. So they seemed appropriate here with all the other flying creatures. And then last on this top row, my absolute favorite of my Monster Arts shelves. This is my Godzilla vs. Destroya shelf. So of course we have Destroya there in the center, roaring in anger. We have the Super X3 flying away. We have my Burning Godzilla being attacked by the crab form of Destroya. We have the aggregate form of Destroya next to Godzilla Jr. with one of those helicopters. The flying form up there. And then way in the back I have my original 94 Godzilla, the first Godzilla that came out, representing Godzilla Jr. from the very end of the film. And then there on the right, I have the Comic-Con Explosion Godzilla representing the Meltdown. So this may change soonish because there is that new Godzilla reissue coming out. I'm not getting to the Destroyer reissue. I don't think there's anything unique in that one. But the Burning Godzilla, I definitely do kind of want those smoke effects, so I might end up getting him. Next shelf down, I have my Alien shelf. This is actually Alien and Alien Isolation. So we have the two different versions of Ripley up front with Jones the cat. Then we have Kane and Dallas. I did add an egg next to Kane since he does have the facehugger permanently attached to his head. In the back there we got the big chap. And then we have the prototype Big Chap, the translucent flesh-colored version. Then up here we have Amanda Ripley with the other version of Jones, which doesn't really make any sense, but there's just a place to put Jones. Then we have the spacesuit version of Amanda Ripley and the isolation xenomorph way back there. Then we have my first of 2 different aliens shelves. So they're starting from the left. We have Vasquez, Bishop, Hudson, Windrix, Hicks, Frost, and then Ripley and Newt. I of course have Newt's little plaque down there. Newt's holding her doll. I have 2 face huggers running loose because I do have the little stasis tube things for the face huggers there in the back. I am planning on building something to raise them up off the ground to make them more visible. I kind of want to go with somewhat of a med lab scene. I believe Frost was dead by that point, but still, it seemed like a cool thing to replicate. And of course, I'm not putting duplicates in here, so I don't have the helmeted versions of some of the Marines. And then up here, I kind of made this lame attempt at a ceiling grate where I have 3 xenomorphs kind of crawling on the ceiling. I need to revisit this and make a better version of it. It's just using like a mesh and a foam core piece to simulate what it's supposed to be. So eventually I'll make a better version of that. Next up, my other aliens shelf is the Power Loader versus the Queen. So this has all of my eggs in it, all the different alien eggs with the face huggers popping out. I got a couple chest bursters there on the ground. I have the torn in half Bishop. I actually have some battle damage xenomorphs there in the back that are pretty hard to see. Then of course the Queen fighting Ripley in the Power Loader. This is actually a customized Ripley. I added some kind of wear and tear on her to make her look more beat up like she was at the end of the film. And of course this isn't movie accurate in the least because this battle didn't happen in a place full of eggs and all this stuff, but it's kind of my amalgam of the end of the film all in one. Next up we have my Alien 3/Resurrection shelf. So I have the dog alien up there in the front, and of course the McFarlane Resurrection alien there on the right. I have my 2 Weyland-Yutani mercenaries there in the back, and then I have Ripley struggling with a chest burster, trying to replicate that end scene of Alien 3, even if it's not the most successful attempt at it. Next up, we have my AVP shelf. So starting from the left, we have the Pred alien. Then I have a bunch of the new AVP aliens there. I have 2 of the standard warriors, and then I have the newest version of Grid in there with a cut-off tail. I have the glow-in-the-dark version back there, trying to make him climb on the wall, but I'm using that new NECA stand, and I freaking hate it. The suction cups wouldn't hold on well enough to actually make it work that way, so I kind of had to just prop him off the ground. He's not nearly tall enough on there. And then way in the back, I do have the AVP-R Xenomorph Warrior, and I kind of threw the net in there to cover up the stand, even though it's pretty dumb. And then here at the end of shelf 2, a shelf that I was thinking about taking apart and using for something else, but now that I'm going to have more new stuff for it, I guess I'm not going to yet. This is my Prometheus shelf. So there on the left, I have the 2 different versions of the pressure suit for the engineer, both the holographic and regular version. You get the Deacon here up front. I have the Trilobite versus the engineer there in the back. Then the 2 normal versions of the engineer, both holographic and non-holographic, in the back right. David up here in the front. I have the 2 canisters of ooze that came with the hologram versions, all the different accessories that came with Deacon. I really like the Prometheus line. I'm glad we're getting 3 more characters from it, because I actually really did enjoy these back when they came out. Down here I have my first Dragon Ball shelf. So I have in the back Goku fighting Vegeta, kind of Saiyan Saga inspired. Up here in the front I have Super Saiyan Awakening Goku with the aura effect fighting Frieza. And then I have the Figurize Frieza back there, kind of representing the final form beefed up Frieza cut in half. And then I have some androids there in the corner. The figure arts 16, 17, 18. I have, was it 19? The other one back there, that's just an old Bandai or Irwin figure. And then I have the reissue Trunks there in front of them. Next up I have my Cell Games shelf, and this one seems to be the one that they've concentrated the most on in the Figure Arts Dragon Ball Z line. So I have Cell facing off with Gohan, the Kamehameha Blast. Of course that Gohan's gonna get updated here when they put the battle damage one out. That is the Kamehameha that came with Cell, but it's a can of beams Kamehameha that Gohan's using. And I have Piccolo, Krillin, Vegeta, which needs to be updated as well, and Trunks watching on. And then a lame attempt to have Goku kind of like existing from the afterlife or whatever. I wish these beams were a little more narrow, because I'd love to have him doing the father-son Kamehameha, but there's no way I could fit Goku behind Gohan without completely messing this up. Next up is my Buu Saga shelf. There in the back I have 2 different Bandai, Irwin, whatever releases. figures. I have the Evil Boo and then the Majin Buu or Super Buu or whatever version that was. And I have Vegito, Mystic Gohan, Datong, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, bootleg because I'm not going to pay the crazy price for the real one. Then these are Bandai, and I cannot remember what line they're from, but they are a line of smaller Dragon Ball Z figures, but it just so happened that the small figures were kind of oversized. So I guess the two Gotenks figures and I heard the Boo are all kind of correctly in scale with the figure art stuff. So I have Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and then Super Saiyan Gotenks and the two Kamikaze Ghosts down there at the bottom. Kind of a cool little figure. They're a little more fragile than I'd like them to be, but they're not bad. Next up, I kind of have my Dragon Ball Super / new movies / extended universe stuff. So there I have Super Saiyan God Goku facing off with Broly, and then I have Trunks kind of from, I believe that was BoJack, the movie where he has the vest on with the bare arms. That was a simple custom I made using those blank bodies figure arts put out recently, and then I found another Trunks figure really cheap, and the head is from the Saiyan Armor version. And I have kind of Beerus up there looking on and yawning. I still need to get Whis for this. And then here in the front I have Vegeta and Goku both in Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan mode fighting Golden Frieza, and this scene I'm kind of stupidly proud of because I based this off of a Rick and Morty episode. So I always kind of have like DMX in my head every time I look at this. And then we're randomly back to Godzilla because I ran out of space in that top row. So here I have Biollante fighting the new Godzilla 1989 special light and sound figure. So he's a little too big and they're a little too close when you put them next to each other because he has so limited articulation. You really can't pose him too well. Then I do have the Monster Arts Super X2 there in the back. And then last but not least, I have a shelf that's Gundam and Evangelion. My friend kind of got me into collecting these. So I have Wing Zero Custom, Death Scythe Hell, Tall Geese up there, and Obitsu stands being very high above everything else. Then I have the Leo and Ares a little bit up, and then on the ground I have Heavy Arms, Sandrock, and then the Evas. So I have the two different versions of 02, 01 there, and then 0. And I have two little AT field effects here on either side. Back down at the bottom left, we have my Pacific Rim Jaegers. And honestly, I haven't watched this movie in so long, I can't even remember the names of all these, but there are quite a few in here. The Gypsy Dangers and the Crimson Typhoon have a tendency to topple over, so I didn't even try to fix them for this because once you move one, it's a domino effect. But this one I did want to show off. This was the Loot Crate exclusive Gypsy Danger, and I'm so disappointed that this didn't get a wider release because it's actually a really nice figure. I just haven't had a chance to review it. Next up, we have the Pacific Rim Kaiju Shelf 1. So we have Trespasser, Hardship, Knifehead, and Mutavore. Is that right? Like I said, for some reason I'm having trouble remembering Pacific Rim names. Then we have the two Otachis, Scunner, and Leatherback here in the next shelf. Then I kind of have my miscellaneous Kaiju shelf. So in the back left, there is the Revoltech T-Rex, then the Monster Arts Kong, the Revoltech Anguirus, Revoltech Rodan, Revoltech Baragon. Up in the back there is a Revoltech Dragon that I wanted to turn into Amanda because it's close enough, but I never got around to it. And also in that same vein, there is a Spider from Lord of the Rings that I wanted to make a Kumonga. And then there is a Trendmasters Godzilla 98 that was vaguely in scale with the rest of this, and I found it at a flea market and thought, why not? Then we have my Ultraman shelf. So I have all the Ultra Act figures there in back, or not all the Ultra Act figures, but a collection of them. I have Ultraman, the reissue there. Then starting from the left, I have Taro, Jack, Zoffy, Ultra 7, and Ace back there. And then I have the new figures there in the front, the new Figuarts, Baltan, and Ultraman facing off there in the middle. And I have a feeling very quickly this shelf's going to change a lot because there's so many things scheduled to come out for the Figuarts line. I'm going to run out of space fast. And then over here is my, I would call it my Gamera shelf, but I guess it's technically my Daiei shelf, or not even, because one of these things isn't even a Daiei movie, but whatever. I threw Daimajin in with a bunch of Gamera stuff. So starting from the back left, I have the Monster Arts Gamera. In front of him is the Revoltech Legion. Then in front of him, I believe, is the Guardian of the Universe Gamera figure. I have some Legion little critters down there at the bottom, along with the Hive. And there in the center, I have the Revoltech version of the Legion version of Gamera. As I mentioned, Daimajin. I have my Showa era Gamera doing his flight mode there on the back. Back right, I have the Gamera the Brave Chogokin figure, which is huge and incredibly heavy, which is why this is on the bottom row, with his little egg form in front of him. Then I have the two different versions of Revoltech's Gauss, both the Heisei era and the Showa era. And we were supposed to be getting some more Revoltech Gamera stuff. We were supposed to be getting some Gamera 3 figures. Here on the opposite wall, I have all of my Predator figures, or at least all the ones I'm currently displaying. So I have my 3 different City Hunters, The two ones up front are pretty obvious, the battle damage and the regular. Then I have the cloaked version way in back. I have my trophy wall with the Elder in front of it. And then I have the entire Lost Tribe hanging out next to that. Next shelf down, I have the video game and comic inspired ones, well, mostly comics. So I have the two different Bad Blood based Predators. I have the Ahab from the more recent comics, the comic book cover version of Predator back there, and then the new Scarface there in front. Then over here, I have my Dead End Tribe, so the 3 actual releases from that movie. Then I added the Battle Armored Lost to it because he seemed to fit in with them in my mind. Then I've got the AVP stuff, so in the back I have like the Temple Guard and the whatever that other generic Predator was. Then in front I have Chopper, Unmasked Scar, and Celtic. This is the new version of Celtic, the battle damage one. And of course the McFarlane Elders way there in the back as well. And the cloaked version of Scar is also back there. You can see the little hologram peeking through. Then I have the 2 different versions of Wolf that NECA's released, waiting for the upgrades of those to come down the line. Then I have my Super Predators, so I have Falconer, I have 2 of the Dogs, Tracker, and then Berserker. And what I started doing with my Predators was to make kind of quote-unquote ultimate versions, so I only display one body and then I'll kind of have like an extra head in the back if the figure has an alternate head or had another figure with an alternate head. I just didn't want to put 3 different versions of Berserker or something up there just because he had different head sculpts. Actually, there's only 2, and then there's the cloaked one. I didn't display the cloaked one. So that's really what happened here. And then coming across to the bottom, I have the Gort, the Comic-Con exclusive one. I have the Jungle Hunter, which I can't wait for that ultimate version. I have the dead body hanging there, the cloaked version of Jungle Hunter, Battle Damage Jungle Hunter, and Water Emergence Jungle Hunter. Then all of my Dutch figures here in a row, looking pretty cool. So those are all the Predators I'm displaying right now. As I already said, I'm not doing a lot of the duplicates, and I'm also not doing a lot of the Kenner stuff on display at the moment. That may change, but just as of now, this seems like a cool way to do things, just to kind of have more of the movie inspired stuff with a couple extras. I do have the Blade Fighter on my wall still. That's still up there, next to Piggly No Wiggly. In kind of an ironic move for somebody called Outside the Box Reviews, I do have some boxed figures up here at the top. These are the retro collection things that NECA put out, and while they're not my favorite figures, they kind of display well like this, so I'm thinking of them as more as posters than of figures. But I have the Mrs. Voorhees and Young Jason, they're on the left. Part 2, the video game, which is kind of part 3. I do need to go track down the part 3 or 4 or both or whatever ones they did. I don't even remember anymore. Got the Roy, the part 6. Then my only Freddy is the Comic-Con exclusive Super Freddy. I still probably want to pick up one of the actual Freddys. I have just the original Leatherface, but I do have the part 2 and Chop Top. I just haven't put them up. I have the Hero Ash. And at the end of it, I have all the different little Eddies they've put out, which I still hope we get a couple more of. And I really only have room for one more, so I don't know what I'm going to do when I hit the end of this, which is why I haven't put the other 2 up. One thing I didn't go into was the top of the Detolfs. So up here, I have my Leslie Vernon mask from Trick or Treat Studios. Then I have the Scythe, and then I have my latest edition, which may or may not have shown up in an unboxing yet at this point, but this is the Hatchet from Hatchet. It's actually made from the mold that was used in the film, and there's like the autographed card from Adam Green kind of representing what that is, or this is like part of the thing to prove it's authentic, I guess. And I have my Cinemachines, so I have the 2 different Predator ships, the 2 different kind of flying things we've gotten so far from Alien. I have the APC, the Space Jockey, and the dropship with the mini APC. I also put the other APC back here. This is actually the Minimates one, but I really like it. It has some great detail to it, and I just didn't know where else to put it at the moment. Over here I have the Comic-Con exclusive, or not really, Toys R Us / Comic-Con exclusive Pacific Rim minifigures, which I really like because they're kind of prop replicas meets action figures. Then I have my older Trendmaster stuff, my Mothra, which was the very first Godzilla figure I think I ever owned, and the little playset thing that I've reviewed that is actually my most watched review is this thing, and I wish I had more of them because for some reason that's a popular video. Then I have the Trendmasters Mecha Godzilla, and then the Supercharged Godzilla, and then the 98 like tail whip version back there, and then the 2 98 eggs. Down here I have kind of a mini Godzilla shelf. So these are all the little blind box figures I opened a while back in a video, and they're kind of cool. Coming across, I have my theater exclusive GMK Godzilla, my signed Revoltech Gigan box. It was actually signed before I ever bought it, but it has Ken Satsuma's autograph on it. The Micromen Godzilla 54 version, but that thing's kind of been glued together because it started falling apart. I have my, what ends up being a bootleg, but is a Godzilla skeleton model kit that I found, and I thought it was legit, and it turns out it wasn't, but it's still really cool looking. And then my Evangelion Shin Godzilla crossover of Rei hugging the little Godzilla. Where my main shelves used to be, I kind of repurposed them. Up here at the top, I have my Destroy All Monsters X Plus set. So I have Mothra Larva, Varan, Minya, Anguirus, Rodan, Godzilla, Baragon, and Gorosaurus. Obviously not all the monsters from that movie, but all the ones I could get my hands on that they've made thus far. I think Manda's the only one in the 30 centimeter line that I don't have, and it wasn't even necessarily Destroy All Monsters looking. Granted, some of these aren't exactly either, but they're close enough, whereas the Manda was very different. Then my Miscellaneous X Plus, I have the 54 train biting version. I have the King Goji version. I have Gigan there in the middle. Then I have the Tokyo SOS Godzilla there at the end. And I know I kind of went through most of these recently in my Halloween vlogs, but just in case you haven't seen them, these are all my Michael Myers masks. So I have the Elrod mask from Trick or Treat Studios there on the left. Actually, I'll kind of just say they're all Trick or Treat Studios unless otherwise mentioned. Then I have the Part 2. Then it's actually a Rubies Part 4. And then next to him is a Part 5 made by Alex Miller. Then back to Trick or Treat Studios, you get the Part 6, H2O, Resurrection. Then I have my Rob Zombie Halloween Michael Myers mask, which for some reason I'm blanking on who makes it right now, which is really stupid. Then the Handy Boy Hobo Myers. Across the bottom I do have the Trick or Treat Studios weapons, so I have the bread knife from Part 2 and the scalpel. I have the butcher knife, and then this warped piece of crap here is the Dark Side Studios knife for Hobo Myers. For some reason it just keeps warping, like gravity keeps affecting it, and I'm a little upset about that. Going back down, I have the Rubies remake Leatherface. I have these at Fun World that makes Ghostface. Then I have my 3 NECA Freddy Krueger gloves along with a Lament configuration that I don't remember who makes. 2 of the 3 Trick or Treat Studios Halloween 3 masks, so I just gotta get the Witch now. And I have 2 Dark Side Studios Jason bag masks, so these are the Part 2 and then the remake bags. This awesome, I think it's Longshore Studios, I think makes this. I found it on eBay. It was a haunted mask replica based on the TV show, and I absolutely am in love with this thing. This is probably one of my favorite things I've added to my collection recently. I do have the Trick or Treat Studios Trick or Treat Sam popsicle things, and then a really nice baby face mask, but the under mask is just a zombie mask. I kind of retooled a little bit. I did a video on that about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, but that is something I'm not particularly happy with how the under mask has come out, and I plan to replace at some point, but the mask itself, the front mask, I really like. And then down here at the end, I do have a homemade Casey Jones mask, which is mostly paper and latex. And then back here, I do have my recent attempt at a cosplay axe, which came out okay, but not great. Here's the current home of my Jason hockey masks. The Part 3 is not there right now because it's off. I'm trying to make a better display for it because I do have the hood to go under it. But I have the NECA Part 4, NECA Part 5, fiberglass masks Part 6, and then the NECA remake. And in case anybody was wondering, this is how I organize a lot of my extra accessories for figures. So these are different, like Dragon Ball Figure Arts pieces or Ultraman pieces. I actually have the Monster Arts in a bigger box down there. And even the mini-mates get this treatment, but they're basically these little fishing tackle boxes, and I put the stuff in there, and it keeps it really nice and organized, and I could label everything, and makes life easier. And last but not least, despite the massive glare, I'll go through my Detolf out here with 1/6 figures in it. So I have my Kit Bash Michael Myers, which I'm still waiting on the coveralls for, but that's the One's Custom head sculpt on there. Then I also, wow, that light's just killing this, but it's the One's Customs Part 2 head sculpt he sent me that I painted up. I have the body, and I'm basically just going to swap the coveralls between them, but I want the better coveralls for my 78 version. And then I have the full One's Custom figure of the Rob Zombie Michael Myers, complete with the tombstone. I got their COAs back there as well. Down the next shelf, it's mostly Hot Toys Terminators. I have the T1 there in the back, T2, and then Linda Hamilton, or Sarah Connor, but I do have the Linda Hamilton signed Hot Toy stand. I also have a replica of the Chip from Terminator 2 that I need to paint up. And then here is the Wasteland Ranger figure, which is a third-party, unlicensed Mad Max Fury Road figure. It's okay. I'm dreading trying to review it just because there's a lot of little parts on here, and it took me 3 hours to get this thing fully assembled with all the little parts in his jacket, and I still don't think it's right. One more shelf down, we have my Universal Horror, so I have Bela the Gypsy in the back from the Wolfman with the Wolfman in front front of him. This is not really Universal Horror because I just realized I have the Christopher Lee Dracula. And then I have the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, who has a broken leg. So I'm using the handcuff manacle thing that came with him to kind of suspend him in place, which works, I guess. And then way down here I have my other horror stuff. So I actually filmed my figure collection video a little while ago as of my time recording this, but I decided to go ahead and take all the figures out of the detolf, clean them up, dust everything. And since the bottom shelf's really hard to see, I thought might as well show it off in a little more detail. So first up, probably the crummiest of the bunch. This was my custom Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy, yeah, Jason. Really kind of crummy custom I did. It's a cheap body. The head sculpt is by me and not good. The glove and the sweater are from the Mezco 12-inch figure that came out years ago. I did get some custom pants for it, which I think I might have tried dyeing myself with paint. And then there is the display base, which is very dusty. Part of the reason I'm cleaning it up, but I got a custom Freddy vs. Jason display with Robert Englund's signature here on it. Keeping in that vein, here is the Sideshow Freddy vs. Jason. This is the Freddy before he was burnt. Got this at a local comic shop, and really I just wanted it because it's a cool Robert Englund sculpt. And to round out the Freddy's, the other Sideshow Freddy. This is, I think it's supposed to be the original, even though he has the striped sleeves, but not a bad sculpt. I think I've reviewed this guy before. In terms of Jason, I have the Sideshow Part 8 here. Looks alright, not great. This is the Mezco Part 7. I think overall not a bad figure, not very well articulated, but I like the sculpt on it. I think he looks pretty good, all things considered. And then last but not least, my custom Part 4 Jason, which, you know, it's better than my custom Freddy, but it's not great. The mask especially, I've never been happy with because it's a little not shaped right. The face underneath I think is okay, not great, but it's something. But yeah, that's more or less everything. As far as figures go, that's pretty much all of it. And then I figured I'd just show off my autograph wall as it stands right now here at the end. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.